All right, what we're going to be doing today is creating a paper inch. So on one side of your guys' paper, I want you to put your name and then paper inch. With this assignment, we're going to be taking this entire piece of paper and turning it into 1 inch. That way we're able to see the fractions of an inch bigger. We're able to learn what the different lines on a ruler mean. And hopefully it helps us read our tape measures and our rulers a little bit better, okay? So put your name on one side of the paper and then flip it over to the other side. We are going to make sure our paper is sideways. So our paper is horizontal for this assignment. And then in the bottom left-hand corner, we're going to write a 0. And in the bottom right, we're going to write a 1. Excuse me. So for this assignment, we're turning this entire paper into 1 inch. And we're breaking it up into the fractions that you would see inside of an inch. Okay. Once you have the 0 and the 1, I want you guys to go on ahead and fold your paper in half. We're going to fold it in half so that the 0 and the 1 are touching. This should be like hamburger style. So we're folding it sideways in half, just like that. And then we're going to open it back up. Once we have it opened back up, we are going to draw a line almost all the way down to the end of our paper. But we should have a space down here. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. We should have a space down here at the bottom so that we are able to write below that. I'm going to wipe that out real quick so it's not in our way. Okay, there we go. So the line doesn't go all the way down. Next, we're going to label the fraction that we have now. Hopefully this one is pretty easy for everybody because it's right in the middle and this is a very common fraction. But just in case it isn't, we're going to do the same thing for every single fraction that we do on this assignment. So we're going to start over here at 0 and we're going to move across this space and then we're going to count what line we get to. So whatever line we get to is going to be our numerator, which is the number on top, okay? And then our denominator, or the number on the bottom, is how many equal parts we have. So to find out how many equal parts, we count the spaces in between our lines. So right now we have 1 space here, 1 space here, that equals 2. So my denominator is 2. This line would symbolize half, or in between, right in the middle between 0 and 1, that's my half mark. Okay. All right. Once I have that done, I have my fraction written down, I have my line drawn. I am going to fold my paper back up to where it was, and then I'm going to fold it in half one more time. So I want you guys to fold your paper in half one more time, just like that. This time it should be hot dog style because it's making your paper longer, skinnier, but it's the same direction as it was before. If I end up moving too fast and you guys need me to stop, just pause the video so that you can get caught up and then play the video again. That way we're moving at your speed. But once you have those folds done, open your paper back up and we're going to draw 2 new lines on those new folds. This new line should be shorter than the last one we drew. So this time when I draw my line, it's going to go about halfway down my paper and the other side is going to be the same. So 2 new lines about halfway down my paper. Now I can evenly see how many different equal pieces I have. So I'm going to start with the lines for my fraction. And to figure out what my denominator is, so the bottom number, I'm going to count how many equal pieces there are. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 equal pieces. So that becomes the number on the bottom, or the denominator. For the fractions, these are going to be called quarters because they are divided into 4 equal spots. Same as $1. If you have quarters, that's $1 divided into 4 equal parts. When I start labeling what number goes on top for the numerator, I'm going to start over here at 0, move across the space, and then count whatever line I get to. So as I start at 0, this is the first line I get to. So that means my numerator, or the number on top, is a 1. Okay. When I get over here to this space, I need to go all the way back to 0 and move across and count how many lines I get to. So there's 1, 2, 3. So that would be my third line, or 3/4. Sometimes people start getting confused with, well, why is that a 3 and not a 2? That's because as we started at 0 and moved across, I hit my half line. I had to cross that line, so it still counts as another mark. It doesn't disappear just because the line is longer. It just has a different fraction because I reduced it. If I was going to look at a half in a fraction, that fraction would be 2/4. But because those are both even numbers, I can reduce them. And that, if I reduced them, I would be dividing it by the same number on the top and the bottom, which 2 divided by 2 equals 1, and 4 divided by 2 equals 2, which is half. So I'm able to reduce my 2/4 to be half. Okay, so that's why that second line that we drew is no longer, we can't put a 2 right here. It has to be a 3, because this line in the middle still counts. So when I start at 0, I hit 1/4, 2/4, which I changed to half, and then 3/4. When I get over here to 1, 1 is the same as 4/4, but I label it as the whole number, 1. Okay. All right. We're going to fold our paper in half again. So I want you guys to fold it back up to where it was. That's where we were. And we're going to fold it in half the same direction one more time. So if you need to pause the video as you fold, go ahead and pause the video, do your fold, and then start it back up again. Once you have your paper folded in half one more time, you're going to open it back up, kind of flatten it so we can draw. And then I'm going to draw new lines on those new folds. And this new line needs to be shorter than the last one we drew. So I'm going to draw all of those lines a little bit shorter than the time before. Okay, and then I'm going to start my fractions. So I draw the line for all my fractions. Now I need to figure out what my denominator is. If you're good at math, you would know that we're doubling every single time. If math is not our thing, that's okay. We can count how many equal parts we have to figure out what that denominator or the bottom number should be. So I'm going to start over here and I'm counting the equal parts. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 equal parts. That means my denominator on all of these new fractions is 8. Okay, so I'm going to draw an 8 below all of those lines. Next thing we need to do is label the top of our lines. So we start over here at 0, and we're going to do the same thing, move across this blank space. And as we get to this line, we're going to count how many lines we get to. This is my first line I get to. That means my numerator is 1. Okay. When I go to my next line, this is my next blank line. I don't want you to get in a hurry and write a 2 there, because just because it's our next blank one doesn't mean it's actually 2. We need to start at 0 and move across and count our lines. So we start at 0. There's 1 line, 2 line, 3 line. That means my numerator is 3. Okay. 1/4 still counts. There's another line. There's a line here, so I can't forget it. 2/8 is the same as 1/4. 1/4 is just reduced. So we want to make sure we're reducing our numbers and we're not forgetting what that next fraction actually should be. So if this one was 3, we're going to keep on counting. 4/8 is the same as half. And then my next blank line is 5. Okay, 5. We can keep on counting, or if you lost track, let's go back to 0. So 0, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighths. 6 eighths is the same as 3/4. And then 7 eighths would be our last fraction. Okay. My next line would be over here at 1, and 8 eighths is the same as 1, but I write the whole number. Okay. All right. The next thing is we're going to divide these in half one more time. We're going to go all the way to 16ths. Or we're going to divide them in half, double that denominator again. If you want to try and fold your paper, you can. Folding the paper in half one more time is kind of hard. So I just like to draw the lines in the middle because I can guess where the middle's at. But these lines need to be shorter than they were the last time. So I draw a new line in between every section, and these should be the shortest lines so far. And if you count those, I already said what that fraction was. But if you count these equal pieces, so I start here and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, it goes all the way up to 16 equal pieces. Okay, so your denominator on all of these new ones would be 16. So we can go ahead and label our denominators as 16. And again, if we're moving too fast, pause the video, catch up, and then you can play the video again. Okay, now we need to start labeling our numerators, or the number on top. So over here, I'm going to start at 0 right here on the edge of my paper and move across that space. And then this is the first line I get to. So my numerator is 1. Okay, start back at 0, move across. There's 1, 2, 1/8 is the same as 2/16. So that means my next blank spot is 3/16. Okay, start back at 0. I have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4/16 is the same as 1/4. And then my next blank line is 5/16. 3/8 is the same as 6/16. So then my blank line is 7/16. Half is the same as 8/16. So if I know half, I can start at 8/16 and then just add one more to it, which is 9/16. Okay. The more comfortable you get with your ruler, you can start in other places and know that fraction. I know that 1/4 is 4/16. So then the next small one would be 5. As you get more comfortable with the ruler and the tape measure, you'll be able to do that. If you have to go back and start over at 0, start over at 0. It's perfectly fine. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11/16 is our next blank spot. And then I go to 3/4, which is 12/16. So if this one's 12, that means my next blank is 13. And then I have 14 for 7/8. And 15 is my last blank fraction. And then 16/16 is the same as a whole inch. Okay, so there is our paper inch. Some of our rulers actually divide up into 30 seconds. Some of our rulers have 30 seconds and 16ths. This ruler right here, for example, let me get it in focus there for you guys. Right there. The first inch is in 30 seconds, but then the next inch is in 16ths. It's kind of confusing, but as long as you guys know how to work your way down, you can figure out really quickly that this is 30 seconds, that one's 16ths. And how we would do that is by the lines or the lengths of the lines that are on your guys' ruler. So the reason we drew all of these at different lengths is to be able to quickly figure out which fraction we're looking at. Our longest line is always going to be half. The next longest line are your quarters. Sometimes quarters and half are the same length, but we know that those ones are the big numbers. It's pretty common for everybody to know the quarters. So those could all be the same length. If I look at this ruler, my longest line is the half mark. Okay, so the half mark is the longest one. It's easy to see between 3 and 4 right there. Okay, and then after that, the next longest ones are quarters and eighths. So I'm able to work my way down and figure out which fraction I'm looking at. So I have half, quarters, eighths, and then 16ths as I work my way down on the ruler. Okay, that's why we have different lines of our rulers, or different lines for our fractions, because if they were all the same exact size, so like that, they're all the same exact size, it is much harder to tell which fraction is which. I can't easily pick out 3/8 because I don't know which fraction line I'm looking at, because they're all different. So having different line lengths, it's much easier for me to figure out which one is 3/8, because I can start in the middle. There's half, quarter, or half, quarter, 3/8. I'm able to work my way down. Okay, so this is your paper inch. Use it, keep it in your guys' binders. It will help you on your measuring tests, on reading a ruler, until you get familiar with those fractions. All right.